And therefore, people have called that their true home. It's the origin. If the origin of all experiences is to be found, there we found it. Only two levels of meditative experience, and we can find the origin of everything. So many saints even, I had a chance to meet many, have called that our true home, because that's the origin of everything, creator of everything, the ultimate creator. The ultimate creator is the causal plane, the chief, the head, the ultimate top of the creative plane. And yet I tell you, based on what this man, whose picture you see behind me, Baba Sawan Singh, my master, told me, none of this is spiritual. This whole journey, whole experience is not spiritual. When did the soul come in? All we are talking of is mind. Meditation with the mind. Withdrawing attention with your effort, mind. It's the mind deciding everything. The mind is discovering itself. Where's the soul coming in? What is soul then? If this is the whole reality, and so many people believe that this mind that is functioning is the soul, that because we are thinking, it's the soul thinking, which is not true at all. Let us see the distinction between the soul and the mind. The soul is the spirit. The soul is what makes our journey spiritual, not the mind. These are all mental activities I've described so far. As mental as designing a mental program outside, designing a software out here, designing a new engineering skill you are using, discovering something new here and inventing something new here. All mental activity, discovering your mind is also mental activity. Nothing spiritual. If we are on a spiritual path and are doing what I've just said, are we wasting our time? Some people say, yes, you are. A lot of people are wasting their time. I wasted several years trying this very thing. So if it's a waste of time, where is the reality then? We want to be on a spiritual path and not on a mental path, and all that meditation is giving us some wonderful mental results, showing us how long we have been here. Before we were born, after we die, there's a real identity we have, answering all the heavens existing. We were in heaven, we were in hell, all are existing. All of them can be accessed in the astral self. They all are the astral level. Everything created. Their beings exist as we know them, with sense perceptions, who can look at us, talk to us, are lying at the astral self or the physical self. The universal mind is a very great realization how powerful a mind is, a universal mind in which all minds participate, how powerful it is to be the creative force of the entire three universes. Where is the spirituality then? We know the spirituality right here. We just don't care for it. I think we don't distinguish it from the mind. Let me tell you some characteristics of the mind and the soul so we make no mistake. What is mind, what is soul? Soul is life. No soul, no life. Whether it's physical, astral, dream, causal, no life. Soul is life. Soul makes us conscious. Soul makes us aware. Soul makes us the ability to have experience. Without soul, nothing can happen. Without soul, mind does not exist. Without soul, astral body doesn't exist. Without soul, physical body doesn't exist. Without soul, nothing exists. Now that's a big thing, a big definition of soul. Mind only works if the soul has yielded its power, made it alive, and allowed it to create space and time. After space and time is created, with the power of the soul that makes mind alive, the mind lives only in space and time. Its main function, thinking. It thinks all the time. If it doesn't think, it will die. Therefore, it's like it's It's like a pulse we want to read. The heartbeat of the mind is thinking. It thinks all the time. Never stop thinking. Thinking is its main function. But in the thinking, to connect the events of space and time through a process called cause and effect, the very basic principle on which our lives are based now, our experiences are based now, cause and effect, law of karma. The mind functions through that law, through thinking. The soul doesn't think. If soul wants to think, uses the mind. He's got an instrument to think. Why should it think? It's life-giving force. He gives life to the mind, can think through the mind. Soul doesn't have to think, never thinks. Mind speaks. Thoughts are mostly in words and images. That's speech. Whether it's spoken in the tongue outside or spoken in the head, it's speech. Only mind speaks. Soul never speaks. Soul listens. Because when somebody speaks, somebody has to listen. The mind speaks, the soul listens. All the time. See, this is happening all the time to us. But I'm just trying to distinguish the two things. Mind speaks, soul listens. Soul does not function in time and space. Mind functions only in time and space. Big distinction. When we think, we are using a mind. When we know something without thinking, using the soul. If you are getting a hunch, an intuitive feeling, an intuitive knowing of anything, without thinking, soul is functioning, directly giving you awareness of something without time and space. Even the smallest thought takes time. Intuitive awareness never takes time. It comes suddenly, you know something. I know it. How do you know it? I don't know how I know it. Most people say that. That's intuition. Intuition comes from the soul. Thinking comes from the mind. And we are using a combination of these two every day. But we don't distinguish it. We give great predominance in our awareness to thinking and to the mind. The mind has the capacity to think so much, it virtually wipes out the intuitive experiences we are having at the same time. Intuitively we are knowing things, and thinking is destroying it. If we can control thinking, we can use intuitive self much better. How can we control the mind? If you look at how the mind, which is thinking machine is functioning in us, it is making us do things. Mind decides things for us. Thoughts dictate our life. Mind says, oh, this is right, you should do like this. They say, oh, you shouldn't have done it, I'm sorry. I regret it next day. I didn't know about something else. Mind works on very limited data. What is in front of it? Intuition works on the entire collected information stored inside us. Very different function. If you look back at your life, you'll see how the intuitive awareness was always correct, the mental aware was not. It's amazing that these two are there and we are following that which is not so accurate, not so good. We have been overwhelmed by a wonderful instrument given to us. A wonderful computer. The best that can ever be invented is called the mind. And we don't know how to use it. And the mind is using us. People tell me, artificial intelligence, AI, is going to be developed to the extent it will have more knowledge, more intelligence than any human being. And it will tell all human beings what to do. It will become our master. And I laughed. I said, that's already happening. There's already an AI, huge powerful AI called our mind. It's controlling our lives already. It's not going to happen, it's happening. How do you reverse this? How do you get control of the mind? Simple. Don't listen to it. What could be simpler than that? Mind says, do this, sorry, no. Not all the time. Sometimes advice can be good. Maybe 3 or 4 times a week. If you can do it daily, wonderful. I am telling you, I have seen success with people who have said no to the mind even 3 or 4 times a week when the mind wanted to do something very badly. Say no. Mind says just one time, no. Never again, no. When you say no to the mind, the word no is also being spoken by the mind. But who has ordered that the mind wants to do something, you can still say no? Who is that who is able to use the mind to say no to itself? The soul, the self. The self can become very strong by little practice of this kind. That's important practice. To assert the soul in your life, you have to follow that. If you do that again and again, the mind says, it's not worthwhile fighting with this guy. Let me do what he says. And becomes exactly our servant, an instrument for use, which is intended to be. Right now, it's exactly the opposite. The mind is our master and we are its slaves. The mind is supposed to be our slave. Then you will be able to think through the mind what you want to think. Every day you can decide, I want to think this thing. The mind will only think that. You get control. Once you get control over the mind, it makes a very big difference. Spiritual life becomes different. When people live intuitively, when they have control over their mind, you can't stop the mind from functioning. You just have control to see what you want to think. Okay, think like that. Supposing the mind out of habit starts still thinking something because it doesn't listen to you, then be very wise and ignore what it says. You can control the mind 2 ways. By telling the mind what to think and ignoring what it is saying if it doesn't listen to you. Both work. When we are given initiation by masters, mantras by enlightened people, they say repeat these words. What is it for? Repeat these words. Why do we repeat those words? It's only to make the mind repeat words it doesn't want to repeat. It's only to take some control over it. Mantra is only used for that. Just to prevent the mind from thinking other things. No, you do this. We are somehow asserting ourselves for the mind to do something that it doesn't want to do. So that's the whole purpose of repetition of words. That we force the mind to do something. We can force the mind to do any thought that we like, that we are in control. If you can have control over the mind, your life will begin to recognize how many intuitive hunches, gut feelings you're getting every day. Which are now being hidden because of total occupation with the thinking of the mind. When you discover that, intuitively something else happens. Intuition is only one part of the function of the soul. The second part is even more wonderful. It's called love. Love comes from the soul, not from the mind. There is no way that you can create love by thinking. When love comes, it just comes. You fall in love. You feel it instantly, without time. Then you use the mind to think about it. That's different. But the actual experience of love is without time. It comes from the soul. It's a spiritual experience. But let us not mistake that spiritual experience of love, which we all have experienced at some point or the other. Because natural to us. It's part of the soul. We all have soul to be alive. And love is part of the natural self. But what happens is that we try to make a copy of it by using the face of the mind, the front portion of the mind called ego, I-ness. I want to love. I want to love these flowers. I want to love you. Who are you loving? I love you. I love him. I watch these statements, put them all together. The only common factor is I, the ego. Those are ego games we play. Because when love comes, we forget the I. True love is the only occasion I have seen in human life when we can't think of ourselves, the beloved takes that space of the I. And that is why Love is the secret of the soul, and love is the secret of the spiritual path. Not meditation. Love is the secret. Love and devotion is what is called the spiritual path. Why two words? Why not only love? What is love and devotion? Love is experienced by us. True love hits us. And how we react to it is called devotion. We become devoted from the experience of love. And since both happen to us, the experience of love and our reaction to it, therefore we call it love and devotion. Love and devotion is a secret of the spiritual path. It does not involve the mind. If somebody comes to a master and gets so affected by the master because of his love, and I've seen people affected by great master, they felt something so suddenly, without time. Some cried instantly. Some fell to the feet of the master without thinking about it. That happens. Do they need to meditate? The love will pull them to the spiritual realms which are beyond the mind. When we want to talk of a spiritual journey, the spiritual awakening takes place when we leave the mind behind and can awaken to the level of our soul. And that's possible. But my experience shows that won't happen till you experience the love from somebody who is already beyond that level. Because love that we call between human beings is very often attachment. These attachments are being called love. In attachment, we are conscious of two. In love, we are conscious of the beloved. So that is why when we come across a perfect living master, the definition of perfect living master is he is perfect because the imperfections are only in the mind. He has risen above that. The living person, we can only associate with living persons, otherwise we only associate with our mind. A dead person, when we talk to a dead person, we are talking to our mind. When we're talking to a non-human being, a bird, a river, a sky, nature, we're talking to our mind all the time. It's all conversation with our mind. When we talk to ascended masters sitting in the Himalayas, we're talking to our mind. I've been to the Himalayas. They've never had any contact with the people who say they're in contact with the ascended masters. All this is within the mind. But when a human being, who while he is human, just like us, has the awareness opened of all levels of wakefulness, while he is in one state of physical being, its awareness is open to all levels, including the spiritual level, beyond the mind. Such a person's love is pure love, hits us, and our reaction is devotion, and that's the way to go beyond the mind.